Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another channel. Firstly, I want to say thank you for your patience because I haven't posted in a couple of days, so I hope you do return and watch. But my God, I am never going to move house again. It's okay moving out your mum's house because you've only got to collect your stuff. But when you're the homeowner moving to another home and you've got to take everything with you, beds, chairs, sofas, tables, everything. If I've got to move again, I'm going homeless. I am never moving house again. I'm stuck here forever. I'm never moving because I had no sleep for about 72 hours. Made us ill. Like, just never again. The stress levels is unbelievable. I've had no broadband. It's just come in today. But in that time of me moving, we've had 3 bids rejected. Not 1, not 2, but 3 bids rejected for our top targets, do you want to say? Anthony Elanga rejected, João Pedro rejected, and James Trafford rejected. But before we get into all those, let's congratulate one of our own, maybe 2 of our own. Congratulations, Tino Livramento, on becoming Euro Under-21 champion last night as England beat Germany. He had an unbelievable tournament where he played left back, right back, showed his versatility. He was absolutely outstanding. And there was another player I want to congratulate. He might not be at our club now, but he is definitely one of our own. And that is Elliot Anderson, who was fantastic against Germany last night. For me, he put in a man and match performance. He was absolutely outstanding. He's a jack of all trades, can defend well, he can tackle well. His off ball is incredible. His in possession is incredible. He's just a talented, dynamic footballer. And by God, wouldn't we love to have him back in our squad? But moving on with the show, we have had 3 bids rejected. 45 million bid rejected for Anthony Elanga. Forest one close to 60 million, but don't want to sell initially. 45 million plus add-ons are taking it to 50 million rejected for João Pedro. Brighton won 60 million, but surprisingly so, Chelsea are now in advanced talks with João Pedro. Then we've also had a 25 million pound bid rejected for James Trafford. Personal terms have reportedly been agreed. Burnley won close 35 million. I think we'll meet around 30 million. So I can see this transfer getting done. So let's talk about all 3 individually. And I want to start by Anthony Elanga because Nottingham Forest immediately rejected. Not just rejected, immediately rejected Newcastle's 45 million bid for Anthony Elanga. Forest not looking to sell but value him at 60 million. Now this is a funny one because I like Anthony Elanga. I rate him very highly. I think his profile is absolutely excellent to develop. So I think he will get better than he is now within time. But this is an interesting one because out of all 3, James Trafford, João Pedro and Anthony Elanga, I think Anthony Elanga is the easiest one to replace. João Pedro is quite difficult because it's difficult to find a profile with that versatility like João Pedro. So I think he's incredibly difficult. And I think James Trafford is the guy that Eddie Howe wants. So we've got to just back it. But in terms of right wingers, I think this is the easiest one to replace. And that's why probably I wouldn't go to 60 million. I think 50 million is probably fair for Anthony Elanga. But what I love about him is how dynamic he is. His high energy style that makes him a consistent threat on the pitch. Got blistering pace, and the key element, Anthony Elanga, he's 2-footed. He can go on the inside, he can go on the outside. He's got that versatility to play on either side. One-on-one situation is incredible. And then the best thing, and I think this is why Eddie Howe wants him, he's an elite ball progressor, especially with his ball carrying. I think this is why Eddie Howe rates him highly because we don't have really a profile that is a dynamic ball carrier. And when I'm talking about dynamic, I mean travelling with the ball over 50, 60 yards, pace and power. Yes, we've got ball carriers. Tonali can carry the ball very well. Anthony Gordon, you'd probably mention. Bruno can do it at times. Joe Linton, you can probably mention, but his is a bit more different. And he hasn't got the pace like Anthony Elanga. Tino Livramento can carry the ball extremely well. So we do have ball carriers. Anthony Elanga is different when it comes to progressiveness. And I really do think Anthony Elanga's profile fits our system. We don't need to go and sign the best of players. We don't need to sign Mbappe, Messi, Vinicius Jr. and fit them all together because that never ever works. You want to look for the profiles that fit your system but also complement other players. I think Anthony Elanga certainly fits our system and complements other players. He's still young. He's got a blend of athleticism, technique and tactical maturity. When I say tactical maturity, he can play across the front line. That makes him exciting, Eddie Howe, and that makes him exciting prospect. But for 60 million, it might be a stretch too far because the best sporting directors know when to say no. They know when they're getting their eyeballs pulled out. And I think 50 million, I'd probably say, okay, yeah, today's inflation, I get it. But what's happening now is prices are going up, but PSRs keep us stuck there. So how are we meant to increase as a squad when prices and inflation are going up in players, but PSR is making us stick to this baseline? We cannot get over that hump, because if we go over that hump, we're going to get a points reduction, we're going to get a fine. And was it worth signing that player for that much money just for that to happen? Absolutely not. So is there alternatives that are cheaper? Yes, and the three that have been mentioned are Johan Bakayoko, which if you're looking for value for money, 20 million is an absolute steal. He's not the finished article and he is very, very, very frustrating. I understand that, but if he can develop him into a better player, make his decision making a lot better. He had a bad season last season, but the season before he was outstanding. So he had a little bit of a drop off last season, but he's got 1 year left on his contract, so he's available for 20 million. If you sign him, you can bring in the midfielder like Lamine Camara. Let's say you spend 50-60 million on Anthony Elanga. You could spend 20 million on Johan Bakayoko, then you've still got what, 40 to 50 million to play with. You can look at Tieno Barry, or you can bring in Alcanuch, or you can bring in Matías Fernandez, or you can bring in Bilal El Kanous. There's so many players that we could bring in that'll, yes, we've got a right wing and Johan Bakayoko, but we can also bring in a creative midfielder, or we can bring in a Joe Linton replacement. So there's alternatives in different ways around things. Karim Adeyemi is another one that's available for 50 million euros, which is about 42.5 million pounds. So that's another one we could be looking at. Now, Mohamed Kudus has also been mentioned, and I'm a big Mohamed Kudus fan. I know he's dropped off last season under Graham Potter, but every other West Ham player did as well. He wasn't the only one. 70 million though. 70 million for Mohamed Kudus. I'm not surprised people are looking at the finances and then walking away, because we've had Chelsea interested, we have Newcastle interested, and both look like they're not going to bid for the player, because 70 million for Mohamed Kudus is too much in my opinion. When he can just bid 60 million for Anthony Elanga or 60 million for João Pedro, there's no point in spending 70 million on Mohamed Kudus, even though he is a terrific footballer. Now, the beauty about Anthony Elanga, João Pedro, Mohamed Kudus, they're all quite similar but offer different things. Even Mohamed Kudus offers something different to what João Pedro offers. So if I'm sporting director, I'm going to Eddie Howe and saying, what do you want from your player? Tell me what you want from your right winger. Do you want a ball carrier? Do you want a creator? Do you want a classic winger? Do you want a traditional winger? Do you want an inverted winger? That's what I'll be saying. Then I'll be looking in the market for that type of player. I'll be asking Eddie Howe exactly what he wants, because Eddie Howe is going nowhere as a manager. He's our manager and done excellent things. And even if Eddie Howe was to leave, if something happened next season or whatever, you bring in a manager that's similar. It doesn't have to be the same, but similar philosophy to Eddie Howe, and that matches these players. So what I'm trying to say is, don't overspend. In my opinion, I'm not worried about this transfer market. I do think transfers and signings will happen, but I just don't think we want our eyeballs. Now, what happens when a team values a player at a certain amount? You won't reach that first time. You'll try and negotiate with them. So yes, you will offer 50 million when they're asking for 60, and then you'll try and meet in between. That's what tends to happen. So if the first bid gets rejected, don't panic. Now, it's a different story with João Pedro, because we all know we had a bid rejected for João Pedro, and we've been interested in João Pedro even before he went to Brighton. And I must say, I am a big João Pedro fan, and I'm going to prove it. Since 2022, I've been saying that João Pedro is criminally underrated. We've had a bid rejected, but it looks like Chelsea have now entered the race, surprisingly, for João Pedro. So from Fabrizio Romano, Chelsea have now intensified talks to advance on João Pedro deal. What he's pretty much saying is, first they're going to get the Gittins deal done, and then they're going to target João Pedro. Now, what I want to start saying about João Pedro, and I've made a scout report on him, so go and watch it. And I also did a tactical analysis on where he could fit in at Newcastle United, so I will link them at the end. One thing I will say, João Pedro, I keep on hearing, oh, his stats aren't great, his goals and assists aren't great. Have you not watched it, bro? His game isn't about goals and assists, and yes, you want goals from your striker, I absolutely get that. He brings far more than just goals and assists. He's a dynamic and versatile forward whose style blends flair, intelligence, and a touch of unpredictability. And I think that's what we're lacking. A little bit of unpredictability in that final third will go a long way when Newcastle United. Now, he's been flying under the radar for so long in Watford and now with Brighton, and then suddenly they're commanding 60 million valuation. For me, 60 million catches us by surprise, and I'm sure it does with you as well. Now, the reason why I think they went to 60 million is because they've seen Cunha leave 60 million, and they've seen Brian Bremo potentially leave him for 60 million. So they're thinking, well, we've got João Pedro, he's just as good as them. He's played in the Premier League, he's Premier League proven. So why can't he be 60 million? I generally think if those transfers hadn't happened, João Pedro would be 50 million. But now they've upped the price tag based on other transfers, which isn't fair, but that's just football, isn't it? It does offer that adaptability and tactical transfers, and Brighton know what they have. They've got a real asset. It's a real rare commodity with João Pedro. There's not many similar profiles that is versatile enough that can do what João Pedro does, but it still does raise eyebrows because you've got other talents that are similar or even lower fee. So what I'm trying to say is the transfer market now is wild. But I've got to propose a question to you guys. Do you think he's worth 60 million? Because I'm torn on this. I would love João Pedro. I think he offers us something different and he would be a real asset to what we have because we need depth and he brings depth because he can fill in multiple different positions. So that's absolutely key when you're going into the Champions League. Not only that, he brings quality and he's a very good footballer and he's probably good enough if we can find a place for him to start now. Starting 11, he's that good. I'm torn between it because if we can get him 50 million, I'd say yes, get him. 60 million is a bit stretched too far in my opinion. It's similar with Anthony Elanga, but if I had a choice between the two, I'd probably go João Pedro because I think it's easier to replace Anthony Elanga. So I want to propose a question to you guys. Would you pay 60 million for João Pedro? Now I need to be honest. I'm going to be honest, and yes, we all love Newcastle and we think Newcastle is the bee's knees and no player should go anywhere else. But if Chelsea are interested, João Pedro is going to Chelsea. Believe you me, he's going to Chelsea because a few reasons. There is players that he's played with already, like Levi Colwill, Moses Caicedo. But not only that, there's a lot of staff that were previously at Brighton at Chelsea now. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. So he'll know them inside out. When you go into an environment where you're already comfortable with the people there, it makes it that lot easier. And Chelsea are in London, so I'm sure London will play a part in João Pedro's decision. Now, if he doesn't want to come, let's move on. There's alternative targets out there, and I might do a video on that. So if you want to see a video on alternative João Pedro targets, let me know in the comments below. And another reason that I forgot to mention about João Pedro, why Brighton might be valuing him at 60 million, is Watford had a sell-on clause included. Now that's undisclosed, so it might be 10%, it might be 5%, it might be 20%, but that will come into play when Brighton are marketing or valuing João Pedro. So that makes it more complicated as well. And speaking of complicated, there's also James Trafford, who we've apparently agreed personal terms with, but haven't agreed any Burnley. Now, everybody is confident that a deal will get done. I'm certainly confident a deal will get done because we did offer 25 million. Burnley rejected it, asked for 35 million. So I think somewhere in between will get done. I think 30 million for, or probably 32.5 for James Trafford will get it over the line. Now, the reason why Burnley are asking for more money is because Man City have a 20% sell-on fee. So whatever Burnley make, they need to give 20% to Manchester City. So Burnley are going to play hardball. They want as much money as possible so they can bank as much money as possible. Now, I think we all know what we're going to get with James Trafford. The modern goalkeeper. A style that blends traditional shot stopping with the demands of today's possession-based football. Fits a mold of a ball-playing goalkeeper, comfortable with the ball at his feet and capable of initiating attacks. That is something that Nick Pope doesn't offer. Nick Pope is a tremendous shot stopper. I really like him when it comes to shot stopping. He does have the odd howler, but what keeper doesn't? We'll certainly have a few howlers with James Trafford because that happens. That's football. But Burnley are reportedly asking for around 35 million for James Trafford. Newcastle have already had a bid for 25 million and 27 million rejected. Now, one thing I will say about James Trafford is, at first, when we got linked to him, I thought, maybe there's better out there. There's probably better in the European market. I understand why Eddie Howe likes him because he's English. He's played in the Premier League, albeit it might not have been a great season for him, but he's also kept 29 sheets in the Championship. He's comfortable with the English culture, so it does make sense. But after I studied him, it took time to even watch James Trafford. The more in favour I am of this move, I think he's a tremendous goalkeeper, literally a jack of all. He's a good shot stopper and he's underrated when it comes to shot stopping. And he's excellent with the ball at his feet. Not yet the finished article. I've already pointed out these weaknesses when it comes to commanding his penalty area from crosses. Really does let you down at times. And sometimes his decision making with the ball at his feet can be a bit iffy. He puts defenders in danger because he always wants to play off on the back consistently. Very rarely goes long. I think we'll see something different when it comes to Eddie Howe because we want to be dynamic, move the ball as quickly and as up the pitch as possible. But the more I've watched him, the more I've been impressed. I think he's been tremendous for Burnley last season. Now, personally, I think 30 million is fair. 30 million million is fair. If they want to bring it up by 2.5, maybe with add-ons, if he gets an England cap, for example, or once he hits 100 games for Newcastle United, we'll pay that extra 2.5 million. But I think 30 million is fair with add-ons, maybe. But I do think around the £30 million mark is fair. So I just wanted to make a short and snappy video because I haven't made one in a while and I didn't have much time to prepare for this one because it's getting late and I haven't been very well. But I want to hear your thoughts. Would you sign Anthony Elanga for 60 million, João Pedro for 60 million, and James Trafford for 35 million? Personally, I think we'll get one of Anthony Elanga or João Pedro. I think Eddie Howe would prefer João Pedro, but it's more likely that we don't get him because he goes to Chelsea. Or is this just a smoke screen? Are we targeting these players, putting bids into these players so nobody knows what we're doing behind the scenes, and then suddenly we're signing somebody from Spain, France, or Germany? One thing I will say, I did a scout report on loads of right wingers, and Jaden Dye was one right winger that I did mention. He's just signed for Como. Why couldn't we sign him? Why couldn't we sign him? Because he would have been around 10 to 12 million, and he has a lot of potential. So that's the deals we should be looking at, in my opinion. But I want to hear your thoughts. It's not about my opinion. Drop your comments in the below. Would you welcome any of those signings for those prices? Let me know your thoughts in the below. But one player I would love to see, Xavi Simons and Alcanuch. I think those two as a pair. Oh my days. But as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you don't mind, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, away the lads.